Good evening, people. Welcome to LEEZFEED. Today, my guest is Brother Witherspoon, and we've been on each other for at least 10 to 15 years. I'm going to let him give him a brief bio of himself. My name is Lee Coleman, former talk show host for WSL in East St. Louis, public access charter communication statement for the city of East St. Louis. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, but not that I'm proud or like the topic, but we're going to talk about it, and that's abortion. But I'm going to allow Mr. Witherspoon to give a brief bio of himself, and then we're going to get right into, in my opinion, the ills of abortion in this country and around the world.
All right. Presently, I serve as pastor of the Body of Christ here in East St. Louis. Been there now for about 2.5 years. The church has been engaged in about 2.5 years in the East St. Louis community. I transferred here from Houston, working as a quality assurance manager for Anheuser-Busch, and then went on to work for Pastor Granger at New Life Community Church. There as an executive pastor for him, and at that church and at that facility. I'm a chemist by degree, educator. I'm an amateur scientist, mathematician, love science and math. Wife, 30 something odd years now. I believe we're approaching about 36, 37 years.
Better get it right.
4 children, all of which are grown now. I have 4 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. And so this is an important issue to me, both spiritually, in every facet that the human life, the human person from the womb to the tomb, so to speak, is precious. And particularly what we see that's happening in our African-American community here in the United States and around the world, as we see many children being prematurely taken while still in the womb.
Right. I like to take it from a personal experience with a roommate of mine in college back in the 70s at the University of Illinois. I had a roommate who he and his girlfriend decided they wanted to be pregnant, and they both decided that they would be. And she was pregnant. She got pregnant. And the father didn't like, because they were both students at the University of Illinois. And she was forced to abort the baby because of her father. The young man stated, and I know this, he was her roommate, that no, don't abort the baby, give it to me. They didn't do that. So they went ahead and aborted the baby. And because of that, the trauma was so great on this young man, he attempted suicide. And he called me, and I had an opportunity to come to the dorm room one night and talk him out of it. And he's alive today, and so is she. But the only missing ingredient is that young baby, boy or girl, whatever it may have been. And at that time, I've always thought about this. A contract is a handshake, a written, agreement between two people or two parties.
Okay, now.
It's also a verbal.
Recorded now.
It can hold up a court. A contract can be a verbal commitment between two parties.
Now watch what happens.
So to me,
end it.
To parse it all the way down, you can break in when you get ready. When two people consent to having a sexual relationship, knowing that a pregnancy may be a result, they both agree to do that. So they both become a party to the baby, the fetus, the zygote, the embryo, and inherent in all 3 of those words I just mentioned is the word human being. Zygote, fetus, embryo, still human beings. And so what gives a woman the sole right to abort a baby with the husband having no say-so in it? Now, I know she carries the baby. That's not his fault, because that's how the Creator made us. Women carry the baby. It's, it's how it is in life. All animal kingdom, insects and everything else. But anyway, she aborted the baby, and I don't think it's been the same since. So my thoughts are that a woman does not have the right solely in a unilateral way to abort a baby without the husband being involved. or the baby's daddy being involved. What do you think of that?
Well, I would take it a step further. I don't think either of them have the right to abort the baby. Now, when we talk about those rights that may be legislated, if you will, and so they can legislate. But as a pastor, from a biblical perspective, from a God perspective, made in the image and likeness of the creative God, there's a certain dignity that exists for that human person, as you said, that human being, from the moment of conception to the time that they would naturally have passed away. And all of that is precious. And so we must treat it as such. And so, as you mentioned, it is given unto the woman to carry that child unto the term that, but as you also mentioned, it is a natural result of the sexual intercourse that pregnancy may result. We know that there's no getting around that. The best way to decide not to have the baby, not to have sex. Once you engage in the sexual intercourse, you are in fact at that point saying, okay, I realize that this action could result in the life of a newborn child coming into existence. And so we can't negate that. We can't push that aside. There's no amount of legislative rights or legislative laws that then push that aside. And that's what has happened, however, that we've allowed legislation to come into place that has made abortions simply a question of uh, whether or not I wanted to take to the natural conclusion, the natural act that I committed in having sexual intercourse. And so that's what part of the struggle is.
So wait a minute, what about the fact that Roe v. Wade back in 1973, Roe v. Wade was a legislative mandate, or a bill passed, Congress signed it into law, well, the president signed it into law. So it's a law, but also
Yeah.
the law that slavery was legal.
Exactly. All laws, just because they're laws, don't make them the right thing. It doesn't mean that they're the correct thing to do. The fact that we have been able as human beings to make legislative laws simply speaks to the fact that we have this unique quality that no other species has. No other animal can make unique laws to his own nature. No other creature can do that. Only the human person has been permitted to have that quality. And so, but there is a just way to use that quality. There's a righteous way to use that quality. And sometimes we make laws that are not just and not righteous. And so if we allow ourselves to be guided by such unrighteousness, we get into things like slavery. We get into things like abortions. We get into things like all the prejudices that we see in terms of race, creed, color. We see those things.
Yeah, and we'll get into this a little later here on Lee's feed. The methods by which they abort babies, but I want to talk about that a little bit deeper in terms of it not being a human. Isn't that the justification for slavery? That a black man or woman was not human? They even had human zoos with black people in zoos. There are very many documented cases of that. So you weren't a human being. They knew that you were because they impregnated so many of our African females and had babies by them. So we know that the black man and all different types of so-called races of humans are humans. Okay, so in order to justify that, I hear a lot of women say, well, it's not a baby, it's a zygote. It's an embryo. It's a fetus.
Yeah, well, we could come up with all kinds of words to attempt to bring about a justification when we want to do something that we just want to do. Being extra sexual promiscuous right now, I've got a sexual addiction, right? As if we have no self-control, as if, man, we have somehow or another surrendered that aspect of our humanity. Again, that uniqueness that makes us uniquely human, that sense of self-control, that sense of consciousness that allows us to not only think about us individually, but think about us as a species, that thinks about us today, but thinks about us 100 years from now, what that would mean. And so in a world that, however, wants to maximize its pleasures and minimize its pains, we find reasons and excuses to be able to say, man, that I'm justified in doing whatever it is that I want to do. It's a glob, it's not a baby, it's a fetus, it's an embryo, everything that they want to say as if it was not a person. Right. And so once you deny that it's personhood, you deny its humanity. Now we are permitted to be able to do whatever we want to do to it because we don't come up under the strict rule that we're actually taking a meaningful, purposeful life.
Right. And it's a way to also to ease the mind that I didn't do anything wrong because the Supreme Court said that it's not a baby or that we can kill it.
Well, we know that it doesn't ease the mind, it doesn't ease the spirit. As you just described with your friend who came to you and then wanted to commit suicide. We don't know what the young lady went through because she was forced by her parent to have to do that. She broke a relationship. She broke an agreement with the man that she had decided, man, that they would join and become one flesh, if you will, and thus were granted the joy of producing a child. So we don't know what that ripple effect was with her, but we do know that the young man suffered, by your words, he suffered a traumatic situation. And so to the point, man, that his own life, he thought, man, had lost its value. And so we see this all the time. This is not a new thing that we see. We see mothers and we see daughters who have had abortions, who then go through, man, all of these type of psychological and psychopathical disorders and diseases of the mind, diseases of the spirit, diseases of the soul, right? That they just don't sit at ease with the fact that they destroyed them.
And let me say this: these are two Black men talking about abortion, as though we're not qualified to talk about it because they say it's a woman's right to choose. But we play a role in pregnancies. We play a role in children's lives.
We play more than a role. We were, in fact, a fetus. We were, in fact, embryos. We were, in fact, conceived. We were, in fact, went through the terms within our mother's wombs. We have now grown. We have children of our own. We've continued on in the process. We are a part of this unfolding plan. And so the idea that somehow or another, because we are not the ones who carry the child, that is somehow another man's dismisses us,
qualifies us,
and disqualifies
having any comment on
having
it
any
at all.
comment on it, man, is absolute foolishness.
But women who say, I'm really against abortion, but a woman's right to choose. So how can you be both? How can you be against abortion but a woman still has the right to choose?
I think that's kind of like what you said earlier, right? See, when we want to do something, and what we're doing is something that we know we may not ought to be doing, whatever that is. We can find somebody else doing something that they ought not to be doing. Well, the pot can't call the kettle black, right? And so it's easy for us to, I won't say it's easy. It becomes comfortable for us to be able to say, well, I'm anti-abortion, but I want a woman to have her rights. Now, when you say that, if you're saying that by having her rights, that she now has a right to take the life of the person that is inside of her, then by definition, you're for abortion. You won't be in it.
And the biggest debate is that that's not a human being yet. How do you parse that? How do you make it not a human being? If you don't mess with a tadpole, it's going to become a frog, right? If you leave it alone.
Yeah. Well, again, what you do is you try to break things down. You just keep breaking things down,
For justification.
For justification,
Yes.
right? It's a molecule. It's a cell. It's a this. It's a that. But it's anything but a person.
Yeah. Another thing they've done, the methods by which they abort babies, it's just horrific. Suction. One while they were having partial birth abortions. That's when the baby is actually born and the doctor was legally allowed to kill that baby by strangling it, or taking forceps in the brain. And there are videos of that suction procedure. and it's horrible. They bring out pieces. And so another method, they get it when they get it real early, they put it in a petri dish and they squash the brain, the human being who's developing. And then the parts they don't use for cosmetics and other things and stem cell research and vaccines, it's in the inferno. They throw it in the incinerator and they burn these babies. And to me, that's horrific. What does the Bible say about abortion?
Well, the Bible is clear. There are any number of scriptures that we could refer to. You can go to Psalms 139, which tells us that he knew us from, before we even in our mother's womb, that he cared for us even before that happened. You go to Genesis, of course, and we speak to being made in the image and in the likeness of the God himself. Jesus Christ speaks to the fact that every life is precious. That didn't matter whether or not you were born rich or born poor, right? There is no Jew, there is no Greek, there is no him. Everyone is precious in the eyes of the Lord, and so the Bible is replete with that. And anyone who really wants to investigate that from a biblical
So the
standpoint.
Bible is antithetical to abortion.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Okay, now here's a question that we hear. I want to get into a few other things about abortion being health care.
Okay.
Abortion is health care. Let's go back to incest and rape.
Right.
I did some research and based on two sources, 0.5% of abortions are done because of incest and 1.5 for rape. That leaves 98% as an elective procedure for women. I'm going to further my career. I know a personal case where a person went to play volleyball. I know another case where her friends were talking her into doing it. This is something that's pleasing to me. I had a few experiences with talking to young ladies who have been encouraged to abort a baby. And that one case was a young lady came to me back in the 70s and she was torn to pieces because, she was young and her father was older, but they consented. So now she's pregnant and her friends are telling her to get rid of that baby. You're too young for that baby. So she knocked on my office door one day. I didn't even know the young lady that well.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a good conversation. Of course, I was against it and I convinced her not to do it. So let's fast forward about 25 to 30 years. I get a phone call and it's the young lady. And she said, hold on, Mr. Corbin, I want you to talk to somebody. So the next thing I know, there's a young man on the phone. Hello, Mr. Coleman. Yes, sir. I want to thank you. Thank me for what? He said, I was that baby. I'm an engineer. I was that baby and I'm an engineer. There was another case similar to that where the young lady wanted to play volleyball. And her relative got to me and I got a chance to talk to the young lady to play volleyball. Her grandfather granted her the money. Because it's nothing, just get rid of it. You don't get tied down with that. Go back and play volleyball in your skivvies. So I get a picture about 4 years later. He's the most handsome guy ever. Movie star quality, good looks. And they was going to destroy this baby to play volleyball. Rape and incest is not a major. If you give that away, okay, I give you rape and incest, that's 2%, which I got some thoughts on that. That's 98% of abortions are elective. For careers, don't want to lose my body. I want to stay firm up here, or whatever you want to do. So just willy-nilly taking babies out.
Yeah, well, you have a cultural transition that took place, right? You got to remember, we were here in Illinois. Parents used to put their babies on their back, swim across the Mississippi River, and try to push their children up on the soil of East St. Louis. And now people look at East St. Louis as if, man, it's a dread town, as if it's that soil once was the salvation for children, right? Because people saw. We had a sense of the future, we had a sense of prosperity. We had a sense, man, that there was something bigger and more than us, and that we knew we weren't going to live forever, but we could participate in this eternal process. And now you had a cultural shift that says, man, it's all about you. It's all about your now. It's all about your situation. It's all about your happiness. It's all about your career. It's all about you satisfying whatever you is. And so children, the future, all of that got in the way.
Mm.
There's a document called Global 2000. Jimmy Carter had it commissioned in the 70s, I believe. Yeah, in the 70s. That then projected what we could do in order to reduce population, because supposedly the resources grow, population is going to outgrow our ability to resource it. And so therefore you got to make some decisions about who gets to eat and who don't get to eat. And so obviously the poor, the Black, the unwanted, this is the same ideology that Hitler used, the useless eaters and so forth and so on. So you start categorizing people as something other than people in order for you to be able to justify getting rid of them. Same thing has happened with our abortion. We justify those human persons as something other than human persons, or we at least define them or attempt to define them as something other than human persons, which gives us a justification for getting rid of them.
Roe v. Wade case, the lady involved in that case, before she died, she renounced abortions, and she ever got involved in it. I'm against abortion.
Me too.
I'm against it.
I'm against it.
You know what? I had
every form.
I had
womb to the tomb.
I had a case where. Let's get this clear right now.
Yeah, get that.
We've tried our best to find some females who will come on and talk about this subject with us. I sent out feelers by 3 different individuals and 3 different groups of people who hung out in different groups, intellectuals, and no one would come. So we, 2 old men, I don't know about you, but I'm 72, I'm an old man. We're here talking
67.
So we're talking about it. And we had the foresight to say, let's get some women involved in this. But we couldn't find any. I couldn't.
Well, it's a difficult subject for people to have to be able to talk about. And when you talk to a women, if you talk to them sometimes in private, you get exactly what you talked about earlier. They're kind of torn between the rights of the woman and the natural progression that the natural things of a woman, if you will.
But it was legal to have slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Judge Taney said that Dred Scott was property in the Dred Scott case. The Supreme Court said that. And was he wrong? Heck yeah, he was wrong.
Yeah,
Is Roe v. Wade wrong? Yes, it's wrong.
Yes. Yes.
So the statistics here, Black people used to outnumber Hispanics in this country. Did some research and looked back through the years. In the 60s, Blacks were 18.5 million, Hispanics were only 5%, 5 million, not 5%, 5 million. You fast forward to today, Hispanics are 61 million. We used to be the #1 minority in the country, Blacks were. Now it's the Hispanics, 61 million to 41 million Blacks. Now we had them close to 20 million, right? In terms of raw numbers. Now we've lost, and we're behind by about 20 million. But there are several reports and studies that estimate that over 20 million Black babies, 20 million Black babies that have been aborted since Roe v. Wade in 50 years. 20 million. Now, what else, if that's true, if you can depend on the study that these people have done, where else in the world could you find anything that killed 20 million Blacks? Police, the Klan, poverty, domestic violence.
If you go all the way back and you take into account slavery and some of those things, right? But to your point, again, one of the things that happened, and it was a cultural shift even within us. Remember, many Hispanics are Catholic. Catholic has, up until the present Pope, really had a strong position, pro-life, anti-abortion. And so many of them took that to heart. And up until probably, I would say, the mid 60s or so, many African Americans took that to heart. Remember that during World War I, 80% of all the young ladies who were pregnant had their marriage license. And so Black people were very much into marrying, having families, growing families, even large families. It wasn't unusual for us to have 7, 9, 10, 12, 13 children, even in the state of in conditions that we were facing in that. And again, there became a cultural shift in which we began to think less about tomorrow, if you will, and more about today, adopting many of those ideas that were permeating in the majority population.
Mhm.
And then, you know, in our desire to get equality, we also took on some of the bad habits. And as a result, you know, far too many of our children, and as if their numbers are anywhere near right, even if their numbers were half right, you know, 10 million aborted children is insane. I mean, when you talk about that, imagine if each of those children, in order to reproduce yourself, technically you got to have 3 persons. So for a couple to reproduce itself, you have to have 3 children.
We're talking about 20 million.
No, I was just
Yeah,
using that as
right.
an essence, just
Can
saying
you believe
that if
that?
you thought about it, I mean, that number is just, that means we've aborted a third of our population. 1 out of every 3 babies. If we're about 40 million now, we aborted another 20 million. That means 1 out of every 3 babies we aborted.
And I loved it. I don't love it, but it kills me when I hear popular Black, you know, activists, TV talk shows host who say, well, the Republicans are no good because they are against abortion. But what about aftercare? You know, all the programs that help the poor.
Right.
Okay. And they said that's the reason for it. So basically what they're saying is that it's justified in killing that baby because you really can't afford it. If you look at the picture right there on the wall, it's 9 of us, 9 Colemans, ranging in age from 76 to 64. Thank God Sarah Coleman and Lee Coleman, my mother and father, wasn't concerned about that because we would have all been aborted. I didn't see an indoor toilet until I was 11 years old. You know, I didn't have stable heating and cooling until I was 11 years old. Clothes to wear, proper diet. So my mother died at the age of 36. I commend her and my father and in my community. They helped these poor Black 9 children survive. We're all here. We all have had meaningful jobs. Some of us are retired. We're all mobile doing our thing. And it's a good thing that my mother and my father didn't think like that. They would have aborted us because, well, I got pregnant, but I can't afford it, so let's get rid of it.
Right. That whole entire mentality that the child is a burden. You see, once we decided that children are that human beings are either burden, they're beasts of burden, they're burden of some kind, or they are a mere commodity to be negotiated with, as you read in Taney's report when he wrote the majority decision in
The Dred Scott
the
case.
Dred Scott case, right? That we're to be bought or sold by. We have no other usage other than so that the white man is under no obligation for us. He can buy or sell us at his will, depending on how he
And take us
thinks
from a
it's
slave state to a
right.
free state.
And so that idea that humanity, it fits that. See, once you decide that even if you took the poorest and the lowest, but you decided that they were no longer human beings, you make that available for the entire society. Ultimately, that will permeate the entire society. And as a result of that, we see here, particularly in the Western countries, where we have all sorts of things that are leading to the death of the general death of the population, that creates an environment that gives justification for being able to say, oh, they're poor, they're destitute, they're unwanted,
They shouldn't live.
that they shouldn't live. So you create a precondition that causes that situation to exist, and then you use that situation as a means to say, see there, I told you so, you should get rid of it.
And here's the thing, you know, I had been looking for someone to talk about abortion with me. And I was going places. I was in the car a few days ago, and my wife was in the car with me. And I saw these abortionists. anti-abortionists at Memorial Hospital and over here in Fairview Heights. So I got out. I said, my name is Lee Coleman. I do LEEZFEED's podcast, and I'm against abortion, and you are too. So let's talk about it. Nope. So I found another guy, and he said, I would do it. I walked up to him the same way, and he said, I would do it. And then he bugged out because he said his wife said that you don't know that guy, and you don't go to people's homes, you don't know him. And so, okay, but what was the first thing he told me? He said, a black guy against abortion, that's the Democrat and Republican thing. Now, Democrats are for abortion. If you're not for abortion, you can't win if you're a Democrat for the most part. And when you hear the talk shows, MSNBC and CNN, they're like, he's against abortion. Like, there's something wrong with him. But Republicans are against abortion for a different reason that I'm against it as a black person. There's 9 billion people on the planet, close to 9 billion, somewhere in that number. I've heard from anywhere from 7.5 to 9 billion. And guess what? Only about 7% of them are white. And in this country, white men are dying at an earlier age or at a faster pace than some black people, and some people in the black community and other minority communities. So their numbers are dwindling. And the majority of kids in school today are non-white, although the majority of teachers are white. Okay, so their thing is to repopulate. Okay, I'm against abortion because I think it's murder. It is murder. You're taking a life. Look at the definition of homicide, and it's a homicide.
Yeah, but the scriptures is, again,
If you want to go
that's one of the
both ways.
things that are in scripture that speaks to, thou shalt not kill, now to committing the murder. And so again, I think here again, we see that, Democrat, Republican, those are just two cheeks on the same butt.
I heard 2 weeks on the same bird.
Yeah. Two cheeks on the same. You're gonna get spewed on. It don't matter what.
When it's time.
You're gonna get spewed on. And so, arguing that is a Democrat or Republican thing, right? That's senseless because those guys all sit on the same boards. Their children all go to the same schools. They're leading in the same banks and the same institutions. That's for you and I, the gullible, to be arguing about whether or not kill the child in the womb or kill the child after it's born. Both of those are going to be extreme cases of the murder. And so one is trying to say, well, let it be born, then I'm gonna get rid of it. The other one is saying, no, I'm gonna get rid of it before it's born. They the two cheeks, same butt. All right. And so what we have to come to the realization is that they do not love human persons. They love themselves. They're selfish, they're narcissistic, they're self-lovers, and whatever, and the small crowds that are willing to be with them, even those they will pretend to love until they get to a point, because they believe in an each against all. They have an each against all mentality. They take the position that that the enemy of my enemy is my friend until I can destroy this new friend. And so they're going to get as much as they can. They're going to suck up as much as they can. We see that they go into, for instance, France goes into Africa, takes the uranium. They pay the Africans $8 for the uranium. Sell the uranium at 230 some odd dollars.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that.
And then give no electricity to the Africans.
They got them sending the fuel to Europe.
Yeah.
Their own gas and natural gas and oil, and then sell it back to them.
And sell it back to them as a
Africans are getting it together though. Some of those guys
are putting it together. But my point is, they have no love for that. They're parasitical. See, a parasite will suck the life out of the host, even though with the host die, the parasite got to die. But they'll suck the life out of it, man, rather than try to allow the host right. So they're parasitical, and they will suck, and they don't even like each other. What are they doing to Ukraine? Other people, the soldiers over there are dying. The young men between the ages of 20 And 35, their reproduction ages, man, they done lost more than almost 60%, 70% of those men. So it's no wonder that when we come back here and we see, man, that particularly in the Black, poor, and minority populations, right, you get this huge drive, you get the advertisement for all of the things that will create the preconditions for people to be able to say, I should not bear a child.
You know, Black women get 37% of abortions, while a white female at 34, and Hispanic is 22. Black female about what, 13 or 14% of the population. She's a lot more likely to get an abortion than Hispanics and whites. A Black woman. And isn't it kind of, it hurts me to have to say this, but according to statistics, it's true. The most dangerous place for an unborn Black baby is in the womb of a Black woman. Not the police, not the Klan. You know, when you were in college, did you talk about subliminal suggestion?
Yeah.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah, that's very
They
powerful.
like right now they want. Here's another part of that needing to populate your race. Okay, I guess about 9-10% of, not more, not 90% of the commercials, it's a Black woman with a white man and a child. So they're going to decolorize. They're going to take the melanin out of it. And it's on and on and on. I want to get a chance to talk to some of these ad agencies. Why are you putting Black women with white men? Subliminally, you're telling our Black queens, hey, that's the way to go. I talked to a Black lady the other day, and she told me that the average white man that you see on the street is a millionaire. Don't care how he dressed or what he appeared to be. I said, baby, don't you believe that? Don't you believe that?
But anyway, there's a lot of, there's a lot of delusions. And they're constantly creating another illusion, another.
It's your subconscious mind. That is the most powerful thing. It's more powerful than your conscious mind.
Well,
your subliminal mind is who you are.
Yeah, but they made this very conscious. See,
it's conscious, but subliminally that baby, that Black girl that's looking at the TV, and she's got this Black doll, and she's saying, all these Black women with white men in these commercials. And if it's a Black man in the commercial, you're gonna probably have a daughter rather than a son. Gotta look at that part of it too. So they're doing everything they can to emasculate the Black man and take out females. Like, guess what? You know what the backbone of the Democratic Party is? Black female. What? Last time I checked, 9% of Black men are Democrats. How did that happen?
Now, you got two problems. I mean, obviously, we got a situation with our Black females, but we also have a situation with our Black men. And unfortunately, many of us have abandoned the responsibility and accountability of leading our households. When you start looking generationally, if you just take the present generation, you take the generation before then, you start seeing a very deliberate effort to effeminize men in general, Black folks in particular. You'll look at many of the commercials that are coming on, they're effeminate men, and many of those are either Black or Hispanic men. You start, and as you're saying, this is very intentional, this is very deliberate. You start seeing, man, you'll see movies in which African-American men are actually engaging in the homosexual acts, whereas white men might be suggestive towards a homosexual act. And so all of these things become, these are very particular, very intentional things. We know, some of our comedians have gone on and exposed some of the things that happen in Hollywood where they effeminize men and refuse the Black
man
to do. You got to wear a dress. And so now when you grow up in an environment in which you think that's okay, and so when you take one or two generations like that, you get the really, really Horton thing going on, right? And so now it starts becoming self-perpetual. And so we as men have to, again, begin to exert the authority of our manhood and say, okay, if just as your parents married, just as you married, how long you been married with your wife?
50 years.
50
going
years.
On 51.
Going on 51 years. See, here we go. So, right now, today, you are rare and endangered species. I might put a picture of you and your wife in the Smithsonian and say, this is what a real married couple looks like.
Here we go again with the scheme. Okay. you got to get the black man out the house. You've got to give the black woman the power over the black man, and you got to emasculate him. Here's a personal case. And we was, you remember the movie, what's the name? Dan Carroll played in back in the 70s.
Oh, you talking about Porgy and Bess?
No,
Or
when they had to get the man out the house because the welfare people were coming. I forget the name of the movie.
okay.
But anyway, but here I am personally.
Carol Mahogany? I
What Mahogany, no, that's Dan Ross. But anyway, when I was in college, I met my wife in college. We married, had our first child in Champaign, and we started running low on money. So I said, we're going to go to the welfare office. I want to do it, we're going to go. So we went to the welfare office, and look what they told us. And this is what's happening, and it has been happening. Take that black man out that house. And I saw a report that said that black men on an average spend more time with their children than white men. And check that report out, that study out. But anyway, so we went down and they said, okay, you qualified, but you guys are students and you are voluntarily taking yourself out of the workforce. So we can't help you. So what I did, because of my experience as a young man in East St. Louis, I said, I'll tell you what you do. Go back and tell them that I left home. Left you and my baby son, leave the third. I left. This is true. So she went back and told him. She came back with an emergency check and food stamps because the man was out. So then we got ready to move back to East St. Louis. I told the caseworker, hey, I want to be on a grant. But we're married. She said, I said, can men build? Yeah. She said, well, you put in the woman's name because the men are usually wayward and problematic. I said, you're going to put my name on that case if it's eligible to be there. I want it on there. I'm part of the family. But those are the things they've been doing up for years. If it ain't that, it's in jail. Okay.
Yeah, but again, now take the character that you presented. Take your insistence that you will not separate me from my family. Take the fact that, man, you were adamant about that. Okay. Now you grew up in a household as you described, in which, man, your parents were adamant about you guys being together as a family. It demonstrated that your mother dies at 30-something odd years old, your dad, but all 9 kids grow up. They all go on to do some things, man, worthwhile in their lives, make contributions in their lives, right? Now that's innate. That was installed in you guys, and now by you and your wife being together as long as you've installed that in their children. But think about the multiple number of kids who didn't have that kind of, man, strength that they could call on. And so now what happens is you take two or three generations of that absence of strength, 2 or 3 generations where they hear it's better to abort, it's better to abandon, it's better to,
it gives you an excuse.
Right.
Hey, guess what? I don't want a baby. I don't want that responsibility. Just to go abort. It gets $300-400.
Or just to say, have the baby, I ain't gonna be in the house, have the baby, but you can get the benefits for having the baby. But still, I'm not exercising my manly responsibilities. Even if I come back and say, okay, I'm spending some time with that child, I'm still aiding and abetting in tearing the family apart. What you said then, I'm a part of that family. I'm not only the father to those children, I am the husband to that wife. I will lead my family. And I think this is something that we have to begin to call our men on, as well as our women taking upon themselves to exercise this right to abort. We have to start taking on that. We have to start challenging our men to exercise their calling to actually be leaders of their house, just as you laid.
And there's something you can call it what you want to call it, but I'm a little upset that the church is not more involved, not in little, places where it's not known. Black Lives Matter is world known, internationally known. I want to see some black pastors. And there's 100 black pastors in Ohio who signed a letter against abortion. And I tried my best to get in contact with a couple of them. They have them. We want to continue to do that. Maybe you can help me. But we need to let the world know that black pastors, there are some, but and if there is a lot, they're not vocal enough to make their parishioners understand, and the people who are not the parishioners, that, you know, pastors are against this.
Right. And so what we have is, and this is not new, the Bible tells us this all the time. The church is has its own, not the church, local churches, if you will, have their own internal struggles. That's why Paul wrote these letters to these churches about these internal struggles that were taking place. So everybody that stands up and is called themselves a pastor, called themselves a leader of a congregation, they are not necessarily, man, those who actually believe and trust in the Lord. They believe and they trust in what they say will bring them whatever it is they want. If they want the fame, if they want the riches, if they want those things. So sometimes we find that when we turn to the church, that again, the church may have many parishioners. For instance, in the African American church for a long time, the predominant persons in the church were women. And so you found people who were catering everything that they were doing, not necessarily to what was biblically sound and biblically correct, but were catering that to the wishes and to the desires of the women population, because that was the population that was keeping them afloat. And so yeah, we have to, you know, as pastors, we have to constantly be vigilant about ourselves. We have to be vigilant about making sure, man, that those pastors who are not upholding what Scripture would have us to uphold are being called on that. But this is again why both scripturally, both politically, both socially, economically, people have to be learned. We got so many people who are not learned. So many people who think that they know something, or they heard something, or they were exposed to something, and yet that's not what it really is. And so, in all these cases, we have to become better at learning what it is that we should be.
You know what I call it?
Doing.
When I go to school and I talk to kids or wherever I go, there are two rules that I teach: implicity and explicit. Implicity is an implied reality, you know, and a lot of things are ran off of implicity. It's not actually the explicit, the written rule or a law or regulation. It's what people imply that it is. And they're all wrong because they didn't bother to read what they need to do. Healthcare, abortion is healthcare. What's your take on that? It's if you woman reproductive rights and it's healthcare, you're interfering, especially Black women. If you stop abortion, you're interfering with Black women's ability to get appropriate healthcare.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, again, that's the madness that they're going to say. I mean, if they were truly interested in the health care of the Black woman, not only would the one Black woman who wanted to get an abortion have an opportunity for health care, but the women who want to take the baby to term would get an opportunity. We still see right here in Illinois, and right here in our own area, right? We have the largest number of underweight babies, right? We have the largest number of premature babies right here in our general area. So if you're interested in women's health care, you would be interested in helping those mothers who are pregnant, who have decided that they would take their babies to term, to actually take the babies to term in the most healthy and nutritional way. But they're not interested in health care. That's just
the pro-abortionists would say, they would say, that's why we're not going to have the baby, because there's those ancillary programs that should be doing what you just stated. They're not there. Therefore, we should kill it.
Exactly.
Who the hell are you to say that?
Exactly. So you create the preconditions that allow you to be able to feel justified in doing what you want to do anyway. Wow. Right? Now, you can alleviate those preconditions. If we can send $115 billion to war, we could be able, man, to build hospitals. We already know we can build hospitals in a matter of a couple of weeks. This was proven during the COVID.
That's right.
We can put the hospitals up. We don't have to have no long drawn, full operational hospitals, functioning hospitals, able to deliver health care at the highest qualities, can be done in a matter of weeks. We already know that. So there's no question about what we can, what we're capable of doing. Yeah. The only question is whether or not we have the will to bring what we're capable of doing into actual.
It goes back to the people. It's up to the people to get an understanding and an education on these topics and demand from their local elected officials that this is what we want. You know,
Yeah, you either demand it from them or you become them.
that's right.
See?
So
and this is one of the fears. This is why it's important, man. See, you can hinder people from being actively engaged, as opposed to being passively engaged in the political process. If you put a record on them, right, then you hinder their abilities to become officials, elected officials and other officials by putting records on them, right? They got to go through a whole drawn out thing to get them records cleared up. Or you use the fact that they got a record as a means to defame them, right? As a means of as a defamation against them. They're a criminal, they've been in jail, they had to pay child support, whatever, right? As a means of defaming them so that people won't have them actively engage. Then we can passively engage, which we do technically when you go to the polls and you vote for somebody and you ain't read the law no way, and you don't know anything about the candidates that's actually on there other than the fact that they tell you I belong to this party and this one belong to that party. That's all you, and sometimes they tell you that. So you passively can participate. Right, it's like going to a vending machine and the potato chips is already in there. In fact, it's already the one that you're gonna get is already selected for you. You can't put your money in there and go get the one in the back. It's already there. You push that button, and what's already there was gonna fall out.
we need to know how much they programmed us. And they got it going, but we've got to read and we've got to rebel against that. So we're gonna wrap it up, but I just want the public to know, and this will be on YouTube on our channel. Stop aborting your babies,
please,
and don't be predicting how and who your baby's going to be based on your lack of funding or what you might think you might get in the future. Because you're looking at a black man right here who came off 333 Converse Avenue in East St. Louis, and we had an outdoor toilet, and a cold stove, a warm morning. Okay, and that progressed because my mother put that spark in me, Sarah Coleman, my mother, and people in my community. And I had talking about the lack of a father. This is what we talked about again in the 70s. Maybe dad may not be at home, but uncle, brother, and Mr. John down the street. I had Mr. Arthur, Mr. Jim, and Perk, and those guys on 3rd and Main Street who, hey, you're going to do the right thing. You're going to get an education. And here's where you're going to stay out of trouble. You're not going to do drugs. And I had the guys I played basketball with, whom I learned to play basketball from. And they were like, hey, man, you get on. You know, I never had a black man to tell me to do something wrong in my life.
That's because they care about you. They cared about you. See, today we don't even know our neighbors' children.
I want to talk about that's a segment. I want to talk about hip hop because I debate with this young brother. And hip hop is 50 years old now, and those guys are some are grandfathers and fathers and mothers.
Well, look at them.
And look at the children that they're producing, and they don't even know who the enemy is.
All these guys, right? They're now, man, part of the daggone industry, right? Ice Cube, man, you know, he was going to spray down, shoot him down. Ice Cube, no, Ice-T. Ice-T, spray down, shoot down through. Snoop and all them, you know, although Snoop never was really a banger, but Ice Cube, niggas with an attitude, right? Wow. And now he become Triple X. Now he Bond, right? Ice-T is the SUV. That's where he do. Snoop Dogg is wearing Argyle suits and I mean, you know.
Shoot that again, and now they're
and so it's so all of these people that now youngsters think they should be emulating, they're not emulating them as adults.
They get right there in the hood, the gangster stuff, and then they're at Wall Street.
Now they the one financing.
But anyway, hey, black women,
that's all good. I mean, it ain't all good. I
think abortion since Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And you abort your babies more than whites and Hispanics. Let's do some research
about that.
Yeah, let's love our
community. Let's do something about that.
Let's do something.
Stop encouraging our kids not to take their babies to term. Stop encouraging our kids, man, to have premature sex. Teach them that there's a sanctity about their sexuality, that their bodies mean more than just, man, a moment of pleasure. As I heard one young lady say, stop turning our daughters into skeet machines.
Yeah.
All right. Young men, we have to become responsible men. We got to put away the childish things, pull our pants up, man, stop wearing pajamas at 55 down to the moment. We just got to, our community has got to once again be engaged in caring for and taking and being active with one another. And so we have to example that.
Okay, with that said, thank you, Pastor with a spoon, for coming in, and we're gonna do some more of this type of stuff.
Yeah, enjoy it.
It's been on my heart for a long time to do this, man. Finally got a person to come in to do it, and we would love for some young lady to come and contact us and have that conversation with her. We're not here to beat you up. We're just trying to educate you, let you know what you're doing, because you'll be doing something you don't even know what you're doing and why you're doing. But anyway, thank you so much.
Appreciate
Let's
it.
go to end that show.
Yes, sir.
Okay, take it.
Jesus the Christ. Gotta say that before we end this.
All right, end this.